Disney's live-action Snow White has been stirring up controversy long before its release. And now that the premieres have begun, the drama isn't slowing down. Let's start with the European premiere. Disney held it at a medieval castle in Spain, the very one that inspired the original Snow White castle back in 1937. Sounds magical, right? Well, not exactly. The event was invite-only with barely any media present. Rachel Zegler performed the new song, Waiting on a Wish, but to a relatively small crowd.
I'm waiting on a wish beneath 1,000 treetops, and as the silver sky stops.
Meanwhile, the Los Angeles premiere was unusually low-key. No press, no interviews, just Disney's in-house team handling everything. And the UK premiere? Scrapped entirely.
The most emotional experience that a person can go through to know that what they're working on is something that has reached a generation of people.
Oh, and Disney scrapped the UK premiere altogether. If that's not a sign of damage control, what is? Now, why has Snow White been facing so much backlash? Well, it all started when Rachel Zegler made comments about updating the story.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Sounds pretty harmless, right? Apparently not. Internet critics were furious, claiming she was disrespecting the original film. And then there was the outrage over her casting, a Latina actress playing a traditionally fair-skinned character.
I had no idea what I was auditioning for when I auditioned, and it was a very short audition process for me. I did one more screen test, and then it was just so exciting from the word go.
But let's be real, did Rachel deserve all this hate? Not really, in my opinion. She was just explaining the new movie's plot. She didn't even write it.
So when we came to reimagining the actual role of Snow White, it became about the fairest of them all, meaning who is the most just and who can become a fantastic leader.
And no, she never said romance was bad. She just pointed out that Snow White's dreams go beyond love.
It's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024.
What's even stranger is that Hollywood has been promoting remakes this way for years. Emma Watson said similar things about Beauty and the Beast, and nobody lost their minds over it. Oh, and about the casting complaints, just look at the movie stills. Rachel does look like Snow White despite being Latina. And let's not forget, Rachel is insanely talented.
This girl is a whole, like, she can dance, she can sing for real, she can act, she can do it all.
She went from posting YouTube covers to being cast in West Side Story at just 17.
I was one out of 30,000 people who auditioned for it, and I auditioned for a year.
Steven Spielberg himself picked her for the role of Maria in his movie, and by 20, she had already won a Golden Globe. Since then, she starred in Shazam, Fury of the Gods, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and even made her Broadway debut as Juliet. And she's only 23.
I wrapped Snow White and the next day was thrown into the Hunger Games.
Yet, somehow, Hollywood still has this pattern of tearing down successful women. Meanwhile, actors like Harrison Ford and Robert Pattinson openly say they dislike their own movies and get praised for being quirky and funny. It just doesn't add up.
And I saw myself on screen and I just wanted to throw up. I was so happy about it.
But Rachel Zegler isn't the only one facing backlash in Snow White. Another actress causing a stir is Gal Gadot, whose outspoken support for Israel during the Gaza conflict has sparked sharp criticism. Gadot may be known for starring in popular American movies, but she is originally from Israel.
I also add bli ain hara, khamsa. Two. Against evil eye. Bli ain hara.
And although she has now adjusted to life in California, she has always assured everyone that her heart will always be in her home country. Gadot has lived a pretty extraordinary life, although it was never something she planned or dreamed of. Despite getting a lot of attention for her looks, she was totally disinterested in working as a model, no matter how many offers she would receive. So instead of making money by posing for pictures, she decided to take up a job at Burger King. Yay, you heard right! She chose to rather serve burgers than to be in magazines. But the attention for her looks never ended, and eventually it got to a point where she just couldn't ignore it anymore. So she decided to take the offer to compete in the Miss Israel beauty pageant, which she won.
I went for the experience and then I won and I was overwhelmed.
Naturally, she went on to compete in the Miss Universe pageant, which she purposefully tried to lose. Gadot admitted that she wanted nothing to do with the pageant lifestyle, it just wasn't for her. She was nervous that there might be a chance that she could win, as she didn't expect to win Miss Israel in the first place, and realized that she quickly had to come up with a plan, so she thought the best way to ensure losing was to be a total rule breaker. I showed up late, I came without gowns, they tell you to come to breakfast in a gown. I was like, no way am I having breakfast in a gown. After the pageant, Gadot put the pageantry behind her and served her mandatory 2 years in the Israeli Defense Forces. Gadot has spoken about her years in the military before, and it's clear that her time in service shaped much of who she is today.
When usually people, when they're 18 to 20, they're very self-centered. And you can't be that. You have to put your life literally aside and give back to the country and give back to society.
I wish no country needed an army, but in Israel, serving is part of being an Israeli. You've got to give back to the state, you give 2 or 3 years, and it's not about you. You give your freedom away, you learn discipline and respect. But her military service didn't come without controversy. When Wonder Woman was released, it sparked some backlash. The film was banned in Lebanon ahead of its international release. The ban came due to Gadot's past with the Israeli Defense Forces and Lebanon not wanting to be associated with anything Israeli. Although it was just one country that banned the film, it managed to cause quite the stir for the actress, with all eyes on her all of the time. But the controversy didn't stop here. Gal Gadot was dealing with a lot of hate for her portrayal of Wonder Woman. Some DC fans were totally disappointed and objected to her tiny frame, saying her body, particularly her bust, wasn't believable as that of the Amazon warrior she was portraying. Gadot was ready to prove her haters wrong even before she knew they existed. As for the preparation for Wonder Woman, she was trained in martial arts, sword fighting, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and capoeira. She claimed the training for Wonder Woman was more grueling than anything she did during her time in the military. And to top it all off, she had to do many reshoots for the film while she was 5 months pregnant.
I had migraines, I vomited everywhere. I was late to set because I had to vomit, whatever, morning sickness. It was so awful.
Now, with all the drama surrounding Snow White, it's less of a fairy tale and more of a media battleground.
It's amazing I feel so honored and privileged and lucky to be able to play these timeless, iconic characters.
So here's the big question. Did Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot deserve the criticism? Or did things get blown way out of proportion?